spec happening because of the actors who are gonna portray characters on the screen. Can we trust them? I think not. When comic books start selling in high quantity, they become a trending comic book. But when they start breaking records and selling above average, they become hot. And this is the hottest comic books in the world. Hit the like, slap the subscribe. We're here every week for the Comic Familia.
And starting the list at number 10, we have one of my personal favorite fandoms, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, who have a movie coming out and a video game, and issue number 2 made the Hot 10.
The early comics of this run are oversized, and yes, we have a full wraparound Mouser cover, but they did make a second printing of the issue that has an identical cover, so you have to open it up and check to see which printing you're dealing with. I'll also shout out the third printing, which is a great action shot with April O'Neil.
Well, this is April's first appearance, as well as Baxter Stockman. It's also the second appearance of the team as a whole. Now, these first 4 issues were tough to keep in high grade, what with that oversized nature, not really fitting in regular sized comic book boxes, but we do have 976 slabs on the census. Now, check this out. Only 163 have the coveted 9.8. The record high sale was in June of 2021, where it sold for $5,517. Now, the most recent GPA sale this month was $3,300.
When we started covering the Hot 10 during the height of the comic boom, it was this franchise that really took off because it was also impacted by the full nostalgia cycle. Members were kind of believing that this may be the only time they could secure high-grade turtles. Well, we do have a 7.5 over this last week that sold for $465, an increase of 18%. The 9.4 hit $930. That's an increase of 21%. When you compare it over the last 12 months, that is. And the 9.8 hit $3,330, which is an increase of 32% over the recent 12 months. We do have a Last Ronin God of War style video game coming, but it's all about the announcement, the trailer that dropped last month of the produced by Seth Rogen animated film that's coming to theaters that is very similar style to Into the Spider-Verse.
And they got quite the lineup for their voice actors as well. Jackie Chan as Splinter, Seth Rogen as Bebop, and John Cena as Rocksteady.
We have Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter. Paul Rudd is attached. Ice Cube, and wait for it, Post Malone. Use code TOM101 on the best comic app in existence. It's called Key Collector Comics. I use it every single day. I keep up with the rapidly moving marketplace through this app. You get notifications when anything happens. Trailer drops, news, brand new comics, potential key comics.
We source all this data from Key Collector, and you can actually get access to the list before this video comes out. Make sure to download Key Collector and use that code to support the show.
And looking at number 9 and my back wall, we have X-Men 266, the first or second appearance of Gambit, first on the cover and the main book to spec on as it pertains to the mutant.
Another one of those classic cameo versus first appearance debates. I like the Uncanny X-Men 266 cover better, but technically that annual did come out first.
Annual 14 has multiple panels with Gambit with dialogue. 266's story, however, takes place prior to Annual 14, even if it came out later. Probably why CGC deems 266 as the first full appearance on the slab. I gotta know what the community thinks.
Now, I don't think we've had any new news for X-Men or Mutants since we last talked about this book on March 6th. The only thing I can think of is the X-Men 97 animated series being delayed, but we still do have this book selling aggressively. 288 more slabs on the census since we last talked about it, bringing that total to 19,306. There are 3,434 9.8s, 36 more than that last video, with a record high of $1,700 in December of 2020. Now, the most recent GPA sale was this month for $719.
Although $1,700 is the heights that were reached, I would say that the average height was $1,300. It was a little bit of an outlier with that $1,700 sale. And then we have the newsstand 9.8, which hit heights of $5,000. But in 2022, it was selling around the $1,000 marker. The most recent sale was January this year, where a newsstand 9.8 hit $3,750. The book is all over the place.
The 6.5 and the 8.5 are both up 13%. The 9.0 sold for $210. That's 8% above its 12-month average. The 9.4 selling for $313, 35% up. And then the 9.8 selling for $850, 5% above that average.
Another factor to consider is that GPA doesn't include whether the newsstands were marked jewelers or not. You have multiple editions that members are after because Gambit is beloved.
Moving on to number 8 on the list, we've had a ton of Star Wars announcements recently. We've got the season finale of The Mandalorian Season 3, and Ahsoka Tano is starting in August. We've got Star Wars issue 68, the first mention of the Mandalorians.
This book really cooled off over the last couple years, but ramped up with season 3, and I think it's because of the focus on Mandalore, Bo-Katan getting the Darksaber, the Mythosaur being seen on screen for the first time, and a slate that has just been revealed courtesy of the Star Wars Celebration.
Among the new announcements were 3 new Star Wars movies, the first one being one directed by James Mangold. You remember him from Logan, and he's doing the upcoming Indiana Jones movie. This is a story set in the ancient past of Star Wars lore, dealing with the Force and the dawn of the Jedi.
He also let slip that he's going to be writing and directing the James Gunn Project Swamp Thing. That is probably my favorite news to come out of Star Wars. I digress, because we also have a movie set 15 years after the rise of Skywalker, featuring Rey, again returning Daisy Ridley as she rebuilds the Jedi Order.
And most related to this book, a final movie directed by Dave Filoni, the culmination of all the Disney Plus Star Wars shows.
In reference to Disney Plus, Dave Filoni said to IGN, "I think the story just escalated to the point where Jon Favreau and I were talking about it, and we had a plan for a while." He said he wanted to make a film. It just seemed like the next logical step. The story also, I think, is, like I said, grown to a point where we want to expand a bit and do a little bit of a bigger thing than we've been doing on our streaming shows.
29 more slabs added to the CGC census since we talked about this 2 weeks ago, and we have a record-breaking sale to discuss. A 5.0 sold for $57 back in November, up 49%, now selling for $85.
The 9.2 is up 15%, selling for $225. The 9.4 selling for $266. Shout out Remy LeBeau, up 17%. And the 9.6 hitting $370, an increase of 5%. Next on the list, more Star Wars. We have Star Wars Kanan, the Last Padawan, issue number 6. The first appearance of Sabine Wren, Ezra Bridger, and Hera.
All 3 of which showed up in the new Ahsoka Tano trailer, causing some aggressive sales.
Multiple sales are up in high quantity, continuing the story from the hit Rebels show. I actually purchased this book at a 9.8 near the $600 to $700 marker when it hit its peak back in May 2021 of $900.
And the book is down, like many books from that time, with the last GPA sale ringing in at $450 just this month. But we do have some sales that we need to talk about. A 9.4 sold for $165, 42% above its 12-month average. There was actually 3 copies in total that outsold that average this week. The 9.6 selling for $217, that's 20% above. 6 copies all sold above that 12-month average this week as well. And the 9.8, even though that last record sale was $450, we also saw a sale for $549, which puts it 27% above its 12-month average, with another 6 total copies outselling that average.
And that brings us to number 6 with a repeat offender. This is huge when this happens. Sometimes books come and go, but when they land on the Hot 10 week over week, they're scalding hot. Daredevil 183 from 1982. A Frank Miller key, the first battle between Daredevil and the Punisher. Frank Castle.
We just talked about this book last week. We've got Daredevil Born Again. We've got the Frank Miller signing. We've got 9 more slabs on the census since then, bringing that total up to 1,865. Now, we got a record-breaking sale for a newsstand in a 9.6. It last sold for $139 in 2022, and it's up 12%, now selling for $155.
The 9.0 is up 16%. The 9.2 hit $65 this past week, an increase of 3%. The 9.6 hit $110. That's an increase of 13%. And the 9.8 hit $290. That's an increase of 14%. There was also a newsstand 9.8 that sold for $504. That's an increase of 20% when you compare it to the 12-month average. This book, at a direct market 9.8 selling for around the $300 marker, although it's hot, seems like a great deal regardless.
Nice to see some Marvel keys back on the list. It seems like DC has been dominating. We got all the excitement with James Gunn and the DCU, but you can't forget about the MCU. We've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 coming soon, and it's going to be the end of the Guardians story. We got number 5 on the list with Incredible Hulk 271. This is the first cover and comic book appearance of Rocket Raccoon.
First appearance in a comic-size issue indeed, but second overall appearance if you include the Marvel Preview number 7 magazine appearance where he went by Rocky Raccoon. Now, I can't help but think with the pretty much failure that Ant-Man Quantumania was, that a James Gunn-led Guardians of the Galaxy film is what Disney desperately needs.
The final movie in the trilogy will surround Rocket's origins, dealing with the High Evolutionary, so it makes sense that this book would make the list. We do have record-breaking sales to report on. We're going to start with a regular 5.5, which sold for $113 back in June, up 22%, now selling for $138. We also have a newsstand 9.4, which sold for $340 back in 2021, up 10%, now selling for $375.
The 6.0 is up 15%, selling for $130. The 7.5 is selling for $150. That's an increase of 10% when you compare it over the last year. And the 9.8 clocked in a sale at $1,175. That's an increase of 3%. The heights this book reached was back in June 2022, where a 9.8 hit $2,100. That's a steep drop to the last sale that I just reported on. And there have been an increase of 9.8s added to the census since we last chatted about this book when it made number 3 on the Hot 10 back in December 19th.
And speaking of repeat offenders, number 4 on the list, I almost can't believe it, it's Shazam, number 1, back again, the first appearance of Shazam since the Golden Age.
Clearly, this is a film that polarized the audience because the ratings are pretty good. It actually looks like the marketing was what led to the failure of this film, and the potential absence of Shazam as we know him in the uncertainty of the James Gunn-led new DCU is what's made this book so volatile. We have multiple grades trending above their 12-month average because the book is down overall, and this is a major Shazam key.
The 7.5 is up 20%, now selling for $85. The 9.0 is up 40%, now selling for $150. The 9.2 can't keep up, selling for $145. That's 20% above that average. The 9.4 is 5% up, selling for $171. And the 9.6 is up 9% above that 12-month average, selling for $250.
The last 9.8 sale occurred this past March for $700. I think this book can drop to between $500 and $600 if you're patient, but it's hard to believe that it's going to drop much more than that, considering that Shazam is already available for members to watch at home from the comfort of their living room. Shows that this was a complete DC failure.
Guys, we're in the final hours for the April mystery mail call.
1 per box. House of Secrets 92. We got the OG trade dress, Gabriel Del Otto, alt perspective of the first appearance of Swamp Thing going in. 1 per box. We also have a gorgeous Exile number 1. Wesley Snipes' brand new comic book with an Aaron Bartling Tomb of Dracula 10 Blade homage going in. We have trades, virgins, foils, and metals going out at random. Support the show directly. Join the community by going to comictom101.com. Link is in the description.
And moving on to number 3, we have Amazing Spider-Man 33. Iconic cover, iconic story. Possibly one of the greatest Spider-Man comic books of all time?
Damn right, the debut of the new power that Spider-Man displays when he is trapped under the rubble and needs to find it from within to push past what he believes he can do to come out triumphant.
An epic moment in comics that was recreated on screen by Tom Holland during Spider-Man Homecoming.
This is one of the most cited and referenced moments in comic book history as it pertains to Spider-Man. This is what legendary writer Peter David had to say about it. After his origin, the 2-page sequence from Amazing Spider-Man 33 is perhaps the best-loved sequence from the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko era.
Although this book doesn't really need outside media attention, we did get to see Peter Parker in the Across the Spider-Verse trailer, but we have high performers and record breakers to discuss. Let's start with the 2.5, which is up 2% above its 12-month average, selling for $165, and the 6.5, which is up 5%, selling for $449.
Talk about record-breaking sales. The 2.0 sold for $135 back in 2021, up 48%, selling for $200 for the first time in comic history. The 9.2 sold for $1,700 back in 2022, up 3%, now selling for $1,752 for the first time in comic history. And the 9.8 had its heights reached back in 2009, where it sold for $9,700. And now we're sitting in 2023 with so many books down that are trending, that are hot, with an all-new high, courtesy of Heritage Auctions, where it sold for an increase of 11%, selling for $10,800. Hot damn.
Man, that's a sweet book in 9.8, but keep in mind that is via Heritage, which tends to command a premium. The most recent GPA sale was $8,000.
And now we're at the list at number 2. I'm actually currently rewatching Big Bang Theory, and I think many members were introduced to this next book courtesy of Sheldon. We have Flash 123, The Flash of Two Worlds, the beginning of the multiverse.
The first appearance of the Golden Age Flash, Jay Garrick, in the Silver Age, and we've seen the Crisis on Infinite Earths narrative play out on the CW via the TV shows where Ezra Miller actually showed up. Is this something that we're going to get in the new Flash movie? Well, when Grant Gustin, the actor who plays the Flash on the CW, was asked, he said they hadn't reached out.
Can we trust the actors? I think not. Let me know in the comment section below. Do you expect to see Grant in the DCU at large? We have a majorly respected book that does well regardless of what's happening on the screen. We have a 2.5 that sold for $715. That's an increase of 17%. The 5.5 sold for $1,200. That's an increase of 13%.
Those are both performing above their 12-month average, but we also have record-breaking sales, a 1.0, which last sold for $445 in 2021, up now 10%, selling for the first time in comic book history for $490. We also got a 6.5, which last sold for $2,223 in January of this year, up 12% with an all-new record-breaking sale of $2,500. Now, we're going to see a little bit more on the list if we can trust what these actors are saying.
Well, number 1 on the list, we're going to see that you can't trust anything that they say. Hit the like, slap the subscribe button. We're here every 7 days covering the health of the comic book marketplace. And number 1 on the list, the big bad, the big blue. We have Star Wars Heir to the Empire, issue number 1, the first appearance of Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Now, when Lars Mikkelsen, who played the voice on Rebels, was asked the same question as Grant, he said that he never got called either.
Not only is Lars going to be participating in the Star Wars franchise at large long term, he will be portraying Grand Admiral Thrawn, which took this book from the trending list last week, where it was an increase of 100% in copies sold week over week, to number 1 on the Hot 10 this week.
The 7.5 is up 3% above its 12-month average, selling for $101. The 8.5 is up 48%, selling for $145. And the 9.0 is up 44%, selling for $200. And there were 6 total copies in 9.0 that were above that 12-month average.
The 9.2 had 4 different copies outsell its recent 12-month average, the highest being $204 for an increase of 28%. The newsstand 9.2 is trending above, and we don't typically see this at the lower grades, where it sold for $290 for an increase of 21%. The 9.6 sold for $550. That's an increase of 54%. And then we have a 9.6 newsstand that sold for $700. That's an increase of 12%.
A ton of sales. This book is on fire. The CGC 9.8 sold for $1,425, which is 36% above its 12-month average, and there were 6 total copies in 9.8 that broke that 12-month.
The heights this book reached at a 9.8 direct market copy was $2,300 back in July 2021. The most recent sales put it around the $1,100 marker. The newsstand of this book is very scarce. The heights it reached was $5,000, and that was at a time when it was averaging right around the $4,000 marker. The FOMO is real. Lately, it's been hitting between the $1,700 and $2,000 marker. To put in perspective how scarce this book is compared to the direct market copy, in the last 5 years, there's been a total of 193 direct market 9.8s that have sold publicly in the marketplace. When you compare it to the 9.8 newsstand, a lonely 27.
Is this book a sure thing? It looks like Grand Admiral Thrawn will be the next Darth Vader, the Thanos of the Star Wars universe. Let us know in the comments below.
And, of course, as always,
geek responsibly and stay minty fresh.
Enough said. This is what happens when you forget to record an outro. And it looks like I'm shopping for toilet paper, I'm just realizing, but this was the only aisle that didn't have someone in it. We have other videos for you to check out. Join us every Wednesday for Whatnot Wednesday. We pack the house with all my homies, Jen Mint, Davis Ryder, Carnivore Comics, Rage Theo. And you're going to want to check out ComicTom101.store because we did release our Batman Gold Foil, but we have sold out, except for the few copies I'm uploading right now for you, the person watching this video. Because if you wanted one and missed out, I want to make sure that you have a chance to get one. We priced them for super cheap. Have a great week.